The Wodehouse Incident. How George Orwell defended the most accidental collaborator of World War II. In 1945, as Europe burned and everyone was choosing sides, George Orwell made one of the strangest stands of his career. He defended a man many in Britain wanted tried for treason. And that man was, not a politician, not a spy, but the creator of Jeeves. When the Germans marched into France in 1940, P.G. Wodehouse was living quietly in Le Touquet, working on yet another meticulously silly comedy of aristocratic buffoons. He was 60 years old, famously absent-minded, and famously apolitical. The Germans arrested him as an enemy alien and placed him in an internment camp. Wodehouse treated the ordeal the only way he knew, by writing humorous sketches about it. Someone in Nazi radio noticed. Why not have this famous British author broadcast his camp anecdotes? The propaganda ministry thought it could embarrass Britain. Wodehouse, catastrophically naive, agreed. He read 5 light, humorous talks about life in the camp. No politics, no praise of Germany. But they were broadcast on German radio, and that was enough. Back in Britain, the public reaction was volcanic. Newspapers called him a traitor. Members of Parliament demanded his arrest. One columnist wrote that Wodehouse should be strung up with piano wire. And then into the frenzy stepped George Orwell, a lifelong socialist, a volunteer fighter against fascism in Spain, a man whose throat still bore the scar of a fascist sniper. Orwell had every reason to despise anything that smelled like collaboration. And yet he read the transcripts of the broadcasts and saw something everyone else was missing. Wodehouse, he argued, was guilty not of malice, but of monumental innocence. In July 1945, Orwell published an essay in The Listener that stunned many readers. He wrote that Wodehouse possessed a complete lack of political awareness. He lived in a world of comic lords and gentlemen, remote from the real one. Orwell said that expecting him to understand propaganda was like talking to a man in a foreign language. Orwell admitted that Wodehouse's decision was stupid, yes, but not treasonous. And he insisted that condemning him was morally wrong. It was a strange kind of bravery. A man celebrated for political clarity defending someone who had none. Why would Orwell stick his neck out like this? First, intellectual honesty. Orwell believed that fairness mattered more than tribal loyalty. If the facts exonerated Wodehouse, then the politics didn't matter. Second, he recognized the danger of mob justice. Britain in 1945 wanted villains, and Wodehouse was an easy target. Old, wealthy, and famously out of touch. Orwell had spent his writing life warning about that kind of collective hysteria. Third, Orwell genuinely loved Wodehouse's writing. And this part he didn't hide. He called Wodehouse a literary master of his kind. Praise he did not give lightly. Orwell's essay didn't magically save Wodehouse's reputation, but it changed the tone of the debate. Instead of charges of treason, the British government quietly decided not to prosecute him. Wodehouse lived the rest of his life in the United States, still hurt by the accusations, still baffled by politics, and still writing. And Orwell's defense remains one of the oddest, most human moments in modern literary history. A political writer standing up for a man who simply had no politics at all, because fairness demanded it. 2 writers who could not have been more different. And yet, in 1945, one saved the other. If you enjoyed this literary incident, subscribe for more strange intersections from the history of writing.